Good morning everyone, this is Shravani and I'm going to speak about the operating system unit 2 interprocess communication. So here is a slide of interprocess communication. So first of all, what is the meaning of interprocess communication? So if the two process wants to communicate with each other, so that is called as interprocess communication. Not only two, like more than two process, if they want to communicate with each other, then we will be calling it as the interprocess communication. So as we all know that a process can be of two types. Like first one is independent processes and second is cooperating processes. So here an independent process, it is not affected by the execution of other processes, while a cooperating process can be affected by the other executing processes. So one can think that these processes which are running independently will execute every very efficiently, but in reality, what happens, there are many situations when cooperative nature can be utilized for increasing computational speed, convenience, and modularity. And here, interprocess communication, it is a mechanism which allows processes to communicate with each other and synchronize their actions. The communication between these processes can be seen as a method of cooperation process and cooperation between these two processes. I hope you all understood. Okay, next, processes can communicate with each other through shared memory as well as the message passing. So either it might be, independent process doesn't have the concept of shared memory, but coming to the cooperating process, it can communicate with each other through like shared memory or message passing method. So basically, so interprocess communication can be like seen as a method of cooperation process, because like the cooperation process is like communicating with more than one process, so which is also called as a interprocess communication. Now we are seeing, so until now we have learned like how many types of process will be there, like independent, cooperative, and now we are going to see like how the process can communicate with each other. So if the two process want to communicate with each other, they can use shared memory or message passing method. See, first of all, what is the meaning of shared memory? Like shared memory is like if the one or more process are using the same memory, they're storing their variables, their information, and their resources, everything in the same memory. They're utilizing with the same memory. So this is called as a shared memory. In depth, I want to explain to you in depth the help of this example. So here there is a process A and process B. This process A is executing, process A and process B, this both are using the same memory that is called as a shared memory. So I think you can see so these are the lines. See, they both are process A and process B. They both are referring to the same memory that is called as shared memory. So here, the concept comes shared memory is like if the process A wants some kind of information or data, it can be taking from the memory. And at the same time, if process B want any kind of information on data, it can be taking from the same memory. Means both and after, like if the process A completes any of its execution, so if it wants to store in the memory, it can store in the shared memory, and the same happens with the process B as well. And so I think you can understand this. Suppose for example, I wanted to show you here. I want to tell like operating system. See, an operating system can implement both the method of communication. So first we will discuss how the shared memory methods of communication will happen. Okay, communication between these processes using shared memory requires processes to share some variables, and it completely depends on how the programmer will implement it. One way of communication using shared memory can be imagined like this. We are going to imagine the situation now. Like suppose consider there is process 1 and process 2. They both are executing simultaneously and they share some resources or use some information from another process. Now here what happens? Process 1 generates information about certain computations or resources being used and, and keeps it in as a record in the shared memory. Yes or no? And then what happens? Everything is stored. Then coming to the process 2, so it needs to use the shared memory, or the process needs to use the shared information. It will check the record stored in the shared memory and take note of the information generated by the process 1, and it acts accordingly. Yes or no? Yes. Next, processes can use this shared memory for extracting the information as a record from another process, as well as for delivering any specific information to other process. This is about the shared memory. Like, if there are n number of the process, consider suppose if there is other process called as process C. So here there is one more process called as process C. Or if process 3. So for this also, for us process also, the same memory will be used. Now this process A, B and C, or process 1, 2 and 3, they can use this shared memory. Suppose if process 1 it has executed some part of code, and it is storing in the part of code in the shared memory. Then what happens? The same code which the process A is stored in the shared memory is required by the process B for further execution. So then this process B or process 2, what it will do? So it will use or extract the data which is in the shared memory, and it will extract and it will use the code or data. Okay, so after completing the execution of the process B, after completing the execution here, then again what it will do? It will go back and it will save the data which is in the shared memory. So suppose if there is, as we discussed, there is one more process, that is process C or process 3. So this, if it requires the information which is stored by process A or process B, it can collect from process A, it can collect process A data or process B data. So it can directly go and it can go to the shared memory. It can access the data, whichever the data present in the shared memory, either which is saved by the process A or which is stored by the process B, and it can extract the data and it can make utilize of this data, since it can execute the data, and then what again it will be back and storing it into the shared memory. So this type of communication is called as shared memory. I hope you all understood. So in this shared memory concept, we can see this concept only in cooperating process, because in independent process there is no concept of shared memory. The memory will not be shared by the different process or different computers. So the memory is like same memory will not be shared. Shared is like nothing but single memory. Same memory slice will be shared by the different process. And this diagram can be explained in another way also. It can be shown in another way also. Like if this is the memory part, and if this is the memory part, and if this is the process 1. So same memory. This is process 1. This is process 2. And this is process 3. This process 1 uses same memory, process 2 uses same memory, and process 3 uses same memory. This all happens within the same system. This all happens within the same system. But coming to the independent memory, independent independent process. In independent process, there is no concept of the process. There is no concept of many process in the same system. So in independent process, so it will be using the different systems. It will be using the different systems. This is process P1 with its different memory. It will be using its different memory. Even though this process wants to communicate with each other in independent process, if they want to communicate with each other, they can't use the shared memory. That is, same memory cannot be used. See here, this is memory 1 for process P1 and memory 2 for process P2. So if these two processes wants to communicate with each other in independent process, they can establish the communication link. They can establish the communication link, that is via network or telephone lines, or like this. It can implement the communication network to pass the messages from one another. Okay, and this is all about the shared memory. And in the next class, we are going to discuss about in next video, you're going to discuss about the message passing methods and what are the different methods or types within this message passing methods. Thank you.